Hello! This is my adventure of 100%ing Loop Hero. In this video I'm going to get every achievement in Loop Hero. For that I have to get every entry in the encyclopedia, defeat every main boss multiple times, do some specific stuff, and while doing this, getting extremely overpowered. So have fun watching me getting all achievements and slowly losing my mind. Fuck! But before we get to that, let me introduce you on how it all started. The game starts when you witness the world being destroyed. Then our hero wants to bring the world back to how it was before, well, it got deleted. He wants to do this through defeating the first boss, the Lich. Why does he think that it would bring back the world? I don't know. But still, we have to defeat the boss to progress in the game. I think now it is time for me to explain you how the game works. I am this little hero and this is the path we are following. At the upper left corner is a bar which shows us the passing of a day and a bar which shows us when the boss is going to spawn. The path we are following is looping, so we are doing loops, and with every loop the enemies grow stronger. Speaking of enemies, there are a lot of different enemies, like the slimes or the red wolves. They each spawn after a certain amount of days, and if you defeat them, they drop gear with different stats or tiles which you can either place on the empty landscape for passive stats for a hero, on the path to get stronger enemies or effects when you walk on them, or beside the path to get certain effects on certain tiles. Some of the tiles even combine to something new when you place them next to each other. Before I forget to mention it, at the bottom right are my stats and the hero walks and fights by himself. So I can't do anything when this fucker keeps missing the stupid enemy. Please just hit the enemy! After finishing the tutorial, I set up my first building, the campfire, which allows me to go on my first expedition, which also unlocked my first achievement. After reading the dialogue of my character, I start killing my first enemies, which give me the first tiles to place down, the spider cocoon and the road lantern. The spider cocoon obviously spawns spiders, does this once a day, and the road lantern reduces the maximum amount of enemies that can spawn around it, which is good at the beginning of the game, but later in the game I want as many enemies as possible, for reasons. But I explain it later. These two tiles are both tiles you place next to the path, which you can see through the half full circle. The circle is full when the tile needs to be placed down on the road, and empty when the tile needs to be placed down in the empty landscape. But now to the expedition again. Upon killing the next two slimes, I get my first battlefield, cemetery and meadow. The battlefield is a pretty good tile because it spawns a chest once per loop, which contains extra gear for your hero, so you're gonna see me using it pretty often. The other tiles, you're gonna see me talk more about them later. After equipping my first gear and killing the next few slimes, I get another achievement for killing 5 enemies. I guarantee that I'm never going to kill thousands of enemies in near future. This will definitely not gonna happen. So after continuing the loop, I also received my first grove tile, which I also have in my deck for nearly every expedition. Why? Well, because the enemies that spawn there are not too difficult to defeat, and there is a tile you can only place with this card, and a card which I unlocked later on in the video. Now I have completed the first loop, which gave me access to a chest through the battlefield, and as you can see, it gave quite good gear that I equipped instantly. I defeated my first spiders and skeletons and placed my first vampire mansion. Upon continuing my expedition, I placed on a meadow next to another tile besides the meadow itself, which granted my first tile combination. The meadow transformed into a bloomy meadow, which doubled its effect, which isn't that useful with the tile, but more importantly, more resources. Resources are the main thing we want to get during an expedition, besides progressing through the game, because we can build more things in the camp, which makes us stronger, which allows us to kill more things, and more, and more. Further into the run I get my first Oblivion card, a card so good that it was, without exception, in every expedition I made in this game. The reason for that is pretty simple, because it allows me to delete any tile I placed or spawned. A perfect example is this. After finishing my dialogue with my first vampire peacefully, I place my 10th rock or mountain, and it spawns a goblin camp. Though I didn't delete the goblin camp in this run, I would do this in a lot of my future runs because the goblins are really fucking annoying, even if they think like my hero on the expeditions. The rest of the loop went pretty well, so I didn't decide to retreat onto the camp to get all resources so I can get even more. Then I ran into 3 goblins and 2 skeletons with a vampire. Fuck! So I died and only kept 30% of my gathered resources. Shit. As I returned to the camp, a few survivors arrived and they gave me a few resources, because I lost mine. And thanks to that I was able to build the first building, the field kitchen, which unlocked a new card and granted me more healing upon completing a loop. Because I couldn't do anything more, I changed my deck a bit and started another expedition. This expedition I wanted to focus more about getting resources through this tile. It gives me more resources when placing tiles around it. This was pretty useful because I was broke and bad at the game. In this expedition, I surrounded the treasury real quick, which made it to an empty treasury, and led to spawning gargoyles, which weren't that hard to deal with, at least from my experience. The gargoyle also dropped pretty good gear, which made me like them even more. Only a few moments later, another goblin camp appeared, and due to what happened in my very first expedition, I deleted it instantly. Later in that run, I found out another tile combination, the mountain peak, for what you have to place down rocks or mountains in a 3x3 area. When placed down, it gives me a lot of resource chunks, more max HP, and it also spawns a harpy every 2 days. The harpies are a bit more annoying than the gargoyles, but still not too difficult. Also, if you wondered what a blood growth tile does, you can take a look. It eats the enemies! At least when they fall under 15% HP, but still, this is really strong. Here is also my first encounter with a harpy. She meant that she wants to kill me to get food for her children, so I made the only logical thing and killed her instead. Now her children are going to die out of hunger. What a nice person I am. After that, nothing really interesting happened until a chest turned out to be a mimic. Why does this chest fight back? It's not like I would have done anything to it. I would have softly opened it and definitely didn't open it with violence. But now I have to destroy it. How unfortunate. But still, this is a strong enemy which has a low chance of appearing instead of a normal chest. But I was able to defeat that mimic without much trouble. Because this loop went pretty well, I decided to do another loop. Why do you retreat? Yeah, I don't really understand why I retreated there. Maybe I thought I was so weak because I died on my very first expedition, but I could have easily done another loop. But still, this time I was able to keep all my resources. The next expedition went pretty much the same, with only differences being that I found out that you can only have one mountain peak at the same time, and on which stats I should focus when focusing on the gear while playing the warrior class. These are basic stats like max HP, defense and damage, and you should also have one stat for healing. I also encountered a few ghosts which can spawn when an enemy with a soul dies in range of a battlefield. Something which is going to be important for an achievement later, but I'm still just a wee idiot, okay? I'm not focusing on that right now. After arriving at the camp again, I built a gymnasium which gave me the ability to get XP during an expedition, and upon leveling up I can choose between 3 traits. These traits consist of 10 class specific ones and 5 which every class can take. I also built whatever this is called to unlock potions and started another expedition. This time I placed down a village which I unlocked through the gymnasium, which gives me quests. These make enemies stronger, they give me more XP when killed. But before I even received the first quest, this happened. I killed all villagers. Yeah, for some reason I thought it was a good idea to place vampires next to a village. which obviously destroyed it. When entering it, I had to defeat 4 ghouls and a vampire, which are pretty hard to deal with when you are a weak loser. But after defeating them 3 times, the village becomes stronger because the vampires and villagers decided that it isn't smart to kill each other and now live in peace and thank me for helping them. Though I was the entire reason why this happened? I don't know. Let's move on. During the rest of this run I encountered a few new enemies that I happily killed, leveled up and decided it would be a good idea to affect another village with vampires. Ah! And so went the next hour. I built more buildings, unlocked new cards, fought new enemies, died to said enemies, took revenge and sucked even more at the game because... just place these stupid cards! Until this expedition. I haven't changed my deck because I had so little different cards that I couldn't really change my strategy and went straight in. Thanks to a building I started out with some gear, which made the first loop a bit easier. During the first loop I focused on having high vampirism to out-heal the weak enemies, and this was basically everything I changed. But I got lucky with the gear by still being an idiot because I was too scared of placing down rocks and mountains because of the goblin cans, while having 3 Oblivion cards. Because of that, the boss bar was barely moving for an eternity, due to the fact that the boss bar fills when placing down cards. But then, a few meters away from camp, the Lich appeared and with him 7 temples that all make him stronger. As I stepped onto the tile, the Lich broke out of his crystal, and after a conversation with the hero, they finally started fighting. This boss is an enemy with lots of health and damage, who gets strength through the temples. The end. Very good explanation, I know. So I just sat there, praying that I was strong enough to beat him. And after he broke the shield of my health bar, let me use all my healing potions and nearly wiping out my entire health bar, I was able to defeat him with 184 health remaining. Yippee! After killing him, he talks about someone who is simply called he. And he gave me later also a reason why he respawns, but then I thought, who could he meant with he? I really have to... Oh, an achievement! After defeating him, he gives me a new resource which allows me, if I had enough of these, to take all items upon death. And he allowed me to unlock a new trait I can now get when leveling up. Therefore, I took a trait which allowed me to resurrect once upon death and retreated to the camp. When arriving at the camp, I got another achievement. Wow! And the survivors at the camp forgot that the Lich existed, so I had to do more expeditions to find the real cause for what happened to the world. Great, that means all I have done so far was for nothing. Cool. Now after defeating the Lich, I had enough resources to build a refuge, which unlocks me the rogue. So let's just place it down. Wait, why can't I place it? Yeah, do you remember when I built a field kitchen at the beginning of the game? Because after placing it, I surrounded it with other buildings. Because why not? It turns out that you can only build a refuge besides the field kitchen, which I didn't know at the time. So the only solution is that I destroy the field kitchen, which only gives me a couple of resources back, to place it down somewhere else. Oh, an achievement. I placed down the field kitchen again and finally could place down the refuge, which unlocked me the rogue class. The rogue has 5% vampirism by default, gets this, which I'm not gonna read out, gets trophies when defeating enemies, which he exchanges at the camp for gear, and most importantly, he exchanges the shield with a second weapon. Yippee! There's no better way to test this new class in the now unlocked second chapter. I think everything is gonna turn out great. Fast forward to how it went. Yeah, the only things I really got from these expeditions were 2 achievements and a few new buildings. Otherwise, I only died, fled during a loop which only granted me 60% of the resources, and during one of the expedition, I lost my armor while fighting 2 bandits, because on chapter 2 or later the bandit enemy has a 5% chance to steal gear from you while attacking. I didn't knew this at the time and I took way more damage, and when I realized it, it was already too late. Just a little side note. After unlocking the rogue, I played the warrior only around 2 or 3 more times, so you just know. And if you wondered why the achievements pop up on German, well, I didn't really think that it is that big of a deal that you don't see the achievements pop up on English. But for the next time I'm likely gonna be fixing it. Now back to the video. After I got destroyed in the second chapter, I thought it would be good to try out the rogue in the first chapter, because I have to defeat the lich 2 more times for an achievement, and I was able to defeat the enemies because they barely have abilities instead of the other ones. Anyways, this expedition went really smooth and I killed the enemies much quicker. I was also able to spawn the boss and he died. I guess that was pretty easy. I had a really high evasion chance through the boots, which always give evasion, so you missed a lot of attacks and the rest you already know. The next run just consists of retreating, dying and me trying my best at being shit at the game. But through all the retreating I also gathered enough resources to build a supply depot, which unlocked one of the most important things to later become unstoppable. And that's the ability to craft and find supply items during my expeditions. Even if it was kinda useless at this moment, it will make getting all achievements much easier through a few things I'm gonna explain later. But currently I'm still just really weak, so I tried the warrior again, fought a new enemy, unlocked an achievement for drinking 50 potions, died, got resurrected, and unlocked another achievement right before I retreated. I think now you understand the gameplay loop pretty well, so I just skip until something interesting happens. Let me explain what happened in the last few hours. Firstly, I've gotten 2 achievements just for playing the game. Then I unlocked the encyclopedia through the Info Center, where you can see more information about things like the resources. With the building of the Info Center, I also unlocked golden cards. Golden cards are cards that give you a passive down and upside, like the Arsenal, which also is the best golden card, that gives you 1 extra gear slot but reduces the item quality by 15%. For the rogue, it gives you a slot for an amulet, which provides a magic shield at the beginning of every fight. After that, I slowly farmed orbs of expansion until I got a really good expedition, where I farmed 4 orbs of expansion and almost reached the second boss. Because this expedition went so well, I gathered enough orbs of expansion to build a library, which unlocked the Bookery card, which is really good because it exchanges cards for other cards that you currently have on your hand, and it would become important later. But building the library also gave me the opportunity to unlock extra info in the encyclopedia with the help of books of memories. For the first time I have done this, I also got an achievement. Yippee! Spent all the books for more information, and after that I grinded more resources. Yippee! I grinded enough resources to build something that unlocked the second most important card in this entire playthrough, and it's, drumroll please, a forest. I'm not kidding, I know what you might think. How could a simple forest unlock one of the strongest cards in the game? The reason couldn't be simpler, because what the forest card does is that it gives attack speed based on how many of these cards are placed. This meant that I was 1 step closer to getting overpowered, and I also was finally able to get attack speed in every run. But we aren't stopping there, because I also built a crypt which unlocked the final class, the Necromancer. But not only that, I also unlocked another golden card, which is only good with the Necromancer and entirely useless with the other classes. Now I felt ready to take on the second boss, so I still picked the Arsenal and tried out the Necromancer in chapter 2. Here's the deck I used in this expedition. I started the expedition, and what you should already notice is that there is no slot for armor and a weapon. This is because the Necromancer doesn't attack by himself. Instead he spawns skeletons that fight for him, which makes it more likely that the skeletons are getting attacked. The stats that influence the skeletons are these 3. Max skeletons is really easy to explain because it influences how many skeletons you can have at the same time. The other 2 are a bit more complicated to explain. Starting with the skeleton level. Here you see the skull at the top right. This skull shows us the enemy level, which influences their health and damage. The same goes for your own skeletons, but you influence the level through your gear. And at last we have summon quality, and all it really does is that it's giving you the chance of spawning stronger skeletons that fight for you. With that out of the way, here's the list of how you should prioritize the stats. And smart as I was, I focused it in the completely wrong order. Now in this expedition I placed forests for attack speed and mountains and rocks to actually get some health, because this idiot doesn't want to wear armor, something which would definitely never be a problem. I placed some battlefields to get chests and villages for more experience. I also discovered a new tile which spawns after every 10th forest or wicket is placed. And I'm just gonna call it a fake village. What it basically does is that it's gonna spawn a wooden warrior every few days, and what's special about them is that they don't attack by themselves, but always do a counter attack after hitting them. This is really annoying with the other classes, but because I played the necromancer and he doesn't attack by himself, these were almost free loot. I also placed down groves and cemeteries as they weren't huge threats as necromancer. I continued the strategy until finally, after the boss appeared, I just went straight into battle. I just wanted to defeat the boss. These are my stats I had in this battle. The second boss is the priestess, and she is a very annoying boss, not only because of the fight itself, but also the way she's talking. Because of her, I found out that the Lich was talking about earlier is a god. Already a great sign. The rest is not really important, so we started fighting. As you can see through the stats, the priestess spawns angels that fight for her, and she has these glass windows. At every second attack she refreshes these glass windows, which each have a chance of 20% to block an attack to then break. So what's the best solution to defeat her, you may ask? Attack speed. The only strategy I found for her was to get as much attack speed as possible to beat the living hell out of her before she refreshes the windows. As the necromancer, you instead respawn skeletons instantly through the attack speed, because the skeletons will do the work for you and there is less chance that she attacks you. Now I have only one thing left to say. Kill her! After her defeat, she tells me that the god is going to bring her back to life, and I got an achievement for defeating her. After I unlocked another trait, I returned to the camp, and while having a conversation with this woman about the priestess, a sudden howl appeared. This announced the next boss, which would be my next big goal. But in my next expedition I decided to do the first chapter again to defeat the Lich a third time for an achievement, and because defeating a boss for the first time is the hardest, I was of course able to defeat him without any problem. It seems like we have technical issues. I fixed them right away. So, without any problems, I was able to defeat the Lich and got the achievement for defeating him 3 times. Shortly after that I died while trying to farm orbs of expansion, which gave me the achievement for losing 100 resources. Wow, I'm so good at this game, wow! Right after that I tried out the third chapter with the necromancer while nearly having the same deck. The only thing I changed was the arsenal to the ancestral crypt. This card gives 1 resurrection, which I relied on heavily, and +3 max HP for every enemy killed with a soul. The reason why this is only good with the necromancer is that it also removes the HP bonus that armor gives you, but the necromancer has no armor, so he also has no disadvantage. Back to the expedition, and holy shit, went it good. The strategy was the same as in the run before, so what could have been the reason why the expedition went so well? It were the traits I got during this run. Yippee! On my first level up I got only pretty good traits. I decided to go with the laying down one's life trait, which is a really good trait because of a simple reason. As you know, the necromancer has not much health because he doesn't wear armor, so the damage you take is quite a lot. What this trait does is evenly splitting the damage you get between you and your skeletons. That means if you are getting hit with an attack that normally deals 100 damage, you instead just receive 20 damage when having 4 skeletons. And and even if you have only 2 max skeletons, which you have at the beginning of the expedition, you still only receive 33 damage. So it is really strong. The next traits I could choose from were quite underwhelming, so I just skip over these, and the same goes for the next set of traits. At this point the boss bar was already pretty full and the enemy level quite high, so fighting the enemies wasn't that easy considering that every enemy has 2 to 3 effects in the 3rd chapter. But still I was able to survive all enemies, even these 4 red wolves, which took out half of my health bar. Shortly after this I received my final level up before the boss, just in time because the bar was nearly full. I took this upgrade because it was the only upgrade what would help me in the boss fight, but then, just before the boss spawned, this happened. Well, shit. I wasted a resurrection to some ghouls shortly before the boss fight. This was bad. Now I would have to fight the boss without a resurrection, nearly my only hope of defeating that boss. Shortly after this the boss spawned in. And you probably think then I must have fought the boss, right? Now I have to say that this is also wrong. Remember when I said that these wooden knights aren't a big threat for the necromancer because you have to attack them to take damage? This time my hero spawned a skeleton so fast that he started to attack by himself, which caused me to have less health at the start of the boss fight. I fucking hate this game! But still, nothing was lost and it was still possible for me to win. So I approached at the campfire and started this boss fight. Let me present you the hunter. He entered through a black hole, called me a dog and said that he is the guy to track down those who want to resist. So people like me. Great. Our hero admits that every boss we fought had such a reason and that all lose the point that everyone just wants to survive. The hunter replied that he doesn't give a shit about all of this and just enjoys the hunt, followed by an awesome joke, and then we started fighting, which made me quite sad because I really like this guy. He had a cool character instead of the baby priestess. I really don't like her. But now to the actual fight. The hunter and the sounds all have the trait of healing themselves when an ally dies and dealing 100% more damage. On top of that, the hunter always hits his attacks, fills the attack bar of his sounds by 50% instead of every second attack, and he distracts the attacker to someone else when hitting, which we can ignore when playing the necromancer considering he one-shots all my skeletons. But the real problem are actually the hounds, because if they are attacked 3 times in a row, they just disappear for 3 attacks to then appear again, gaining 250% damage. Let's see how the fight actually went. The fight dragged on for a long time, causing the hunter and my hero to both slowly lose health. After a decade the hunter fell, and these stupid hounds have gotten stronger and got healed, while I only had a quarter of my health left. For some reason the hounds were mostly attacking my skeletons after that, so that many skeletons could slowly chop their health down, and I was even able to regenerate some health during that. But then this happened. Both hounds had fallen into a rhythm where one of them hides causing the other one to just getting attacked, which causes him to hide when the other one appears again. Then the hound at the bottom falls low on health and hides with barely any health. While the other one with more health was beaten up, the hound appeared again for one final time. He killed nearly all my skeletons and dies right as the other one appears. He kills my last skeleton while getting strength again. This time I stood there alone and was barely able to spawn one skeleton before the hound attacks me this time. I was barely alive, because the skeleton blocked half of the attack because of this one trait. But now I stood there alone with no health and a hound which attack was about to come. You know what this means, right? But no, this can't be happening. Skeleton, save me! No! 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 So I barely lost the fight because I wasted a resurrection against some normal enemies. This sucked, but still, there are still positive things. In this expedition I was able to gather a lot of materials. Normally I would have lost a lot of these because I died, but thanks to these skulls you get when killing a boss, I was able to take all with me. With these resources I built my first mud hut and I upgraded my first building, the herbalist's hut, to the healer's hut to gain stronger healing potions. I haven't told you yet, but you can actually upgrade some buildings up to multiple times, which makes their effects stronger or they give you more effects. After that I used more books to unlock more in the encyclopedia, but then it was time to farm enough resources to build a river, which would unlock me the river, one of the strongest cards in the game. This is the case because the river doubles all effects of the cards placed around him. When you combine that with forest cards, which give attack speed, you can imagine what's gonna happen. There's just a little problem. I had only 4 of the required 15 orbs of expansion. You know what that means. More grinding. After getting 3 orbs through ransacked villages in another expedition in chapter 3 and building another forest for some reason, I built the lumberjack, which now allowed me to build furniture supply items. These are the key to get overpowered later, but for now I built only a few which unlocked an achievement. But then it was time to farm more resources again, and my plan was to also kill the priestess 2 more times for an achievement. In the next expedition I was able to get 1 orb of expansion and discovered a new strategy, which would make the bosses a bit easier. It consists of placing down a grove near the campfire so you can place down a blood grove, so that it also affects the place where the boss is gonna spawn. This way the boss is gonna die if he's under 15% HP, which did really work in my favor as I would use this strategy ever since. Later the priestess appeared, I reached her, then my hero bullied her, what I found really cool, and with my newfound strategy I killed her. Time to do the exact thing again! And so I did that, but there were 2 little annoyances. Firstly, I didn't use my smart technique with the blood grove, and secondly, I didn't get any orbs. Despite fighting fights like this and this, I didn't get a single orb out of it. This sucked a lot, so I did something different. After the priestess spawned again, she being a little baby, unlocking an achievement for reading 50 dialogues, killing her quickly again and unlocking the achievement for killing her 3 times, I didn't retreat after killing the boss like I normally did. Instead I stayed in hopes of getting a few orbs, and in hindsight I must say that this was a great choice. I was not only able to get 3 orbs of expansion in one single loop, even though I almost died while fighting 5 enemies, no, I was also able to nearly fill out every tile, gathered a lot of other resources and was starting to get really strong. Although I retreated after this loop, I would call this a success in terms of progression. Back at the camp I built a war camp to unlock the outpost card, which I'm gonna explain when it gets relevant. Then it was time to farm the final orbs of expansion, and 2 hours later of getting destroyed, I had all the orbs I needed to build a river. So that was of course what I did. Yippee! First thing I did was putting the card in my deck, and shortly before I started my first expedition with it, I got another achievement for getting 50 entries in the encyclopedia. I upgraded the cemetery to always have 1 resurrection with 15% HP, and I placed down a watchtower. Then I have finally started the expedition, and it went okay. First of all, I have to explain that you can only place the river at the edge of the map, and once it is placed, you can only place the river cards right next to the last placed one. So what I did was placing the river like this, which wasn't very smart because the default effect of the forest cards will get multiplied by every river tile adjacent to it, and if you place it like this, the forests get only multiplied 1, 2 or 3 times. Secondly, the forest card sucks. What do I mean by that, you may ask? Didn't you say it was extremely strong? Yes, but with the river this only applies to the wicked card, which instead of giving 1% attack speed gives 2% attack speed, which gets doubled to 4% or more. So even with the river I wasn't able to defeat the 3rd boss in this expedition. Do you want to know what I was actually able to do in this expedition? I got the achievement for getting resurrected 3 times in one expedition. Yippee, I guess. I died to 1 skeleton, which used my guaranteed resurrection with 50% HP. A few tiles away from the boss I died to 4 goblins, losing my resurrection of the ancestral crypt. And directly after that I leveled up and got through pure luck the trait which gives me 1 extra resurrection. And you may wonder how I lost with this resurrection while having full health. Here is your answer. Don't attack yourself. No, don't. Are you stupid? You are such an idiot. You fucking idiot. Yep. My hero attacked again, causing me to rage and lose nearly all my health. And when I reached the boss, I got resurrected again, giving me the achievement, and I died. At this point I was pretty annoyed with the slow progress, and because I now have already built the river, didn't know what I could do to get better at the game, except there was only one way to that answer: grinding. I upgraded the cemetery and crafted furniture for later. For the next expedition I used the arsenal again and tried the temporal beacon while leaving out the meadow, because the meadow is weak and only good for farming resources. This expedition I only used wickets next to the river and ignored the forests. I used brokeries to change out cards and tried vampires with mosquitoes, so the vampires damage itself and the mosquitoes also explode. Which is cool. Everything went well until these things started to appear rapidly and killed me. What did I learn from this? Never let battlefields overlap again so that these idiots don't ever spawn again. Then I built more watchtowers for more crossbowmans. I tried the same thing again but without overlapping battlefields. I got lucky, get this trait on my first level up. Then I got more traits to strengthen my skeletons. I got lots of attack speed and high max skeletons. The boss spawned again, there were a dozen strong enemies before the boss, and then I had to fight a boss with 200 HP and no resurrection. Yippee! Placed on the last cards, which would give me resources, and started the battle again. My chances of winning were really low, so I'm just gonna show the clip. And there's the boss, which I'm probably not even gonna reach, and if I win, the game is 100% luck. The hunter was killed again, thanks to my attack speed, but then the moment we all know was gonna happen. I should have gotten crit again, but survived the deadly attack through an evasion. Wait, what? Could this really be it? All the time I spent on trying this, could this finally be over? Let's just see the outcome. Yes! After all the time I finally have beaten the hunter, and after getting the achievement for killing him, my hero said something what was very coincidental, and my hero finally felt like he could succeed in his goal of restoring the world. Because I unlocked the final chapter, chapter 4. But I didn't want to actually do this chapter right now. No! I wanted to unlock the alchemy to be able to convert all resources I didn't need into ones I actually need. But before I did that, I found out that I could dismantle supply items to get some resources back. And for dismantling 5 and 10 items in total, there is 1 achievement each. Now to unlocking the alchemy. To build the alchemist's tent, you need 2 astral orbs. At that time, I never had 1 astral orb. I had only 3 shards of an astral orb, and for 1 entire astral orb, you need 10 shards. I'm not gonna lie, I won't go too much into detail on how I farmed these. All you need to know is that the farming method I used involves these enemies, the Watchers. They spawn from temporal beacons in fights in the range from the beacon when there are no vampires involved. And although they also have a chance of giving astral orb shards, it is much better to place a brokery in range of the beacon and wait until it turns into an abandoned brokery. Then the Watchers turn into Watcher mages, which have a higher chance of dropping these time shards. And when they die, there also appears an enemy which also has the chance of giving you these shards. Anyways, I did the strategy with the rogue in chapter 3 and also built a bridge at the camp, which from now on allowed me to place the river next to the path. In one expedition I got really strong, I mean just look at it. And thanks to that I got a whole astral orb during that expedition, and from that moment on I used the rogue mainly again. Back at the camp I got the achievement for getting every resource in the game and upgraded 2 buildings. So now I had starter gear for every class. Then I went on another expedition to collect the second astral orb, and holy shit, this expedition was great. First things first, because in this expedition I used the outpost card for the first time, and basically what it does is gives you soldiers that fight for you in advanced battles. When playing the rogue there are no downsides, but there are downsides when playing with other classes, so you only see me using that with the rogue. But now what did I really achieve in this expedition? To put it short, I got overpowered through the attack speed, I reached the boss and unleashed a ton of attacks on him, which got him killed a second time, and after that I thought it was a good idea to tackle on the achievement for filling every tile on the map, which even includes the tiles of the path. While at the start I was able to defeat the enemies with ease, the battles would become closer and closer, until finally I was able to fill the last tile, granting the achievement. One tile away from the camp I unfortunately died, what brought me to using 3 skulls to get all resources, but that didn't matter too much because now I had enough resources to build the alchemist tent, and after building it I unlocked the alchemy feature. Oh! 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 Now with the ability to transfer resources into others, I was able to build the last buildings and upgraded a bunch of these, which made it a breeze to defeat the hunter a third time. The best upgrade from a building was by far the gymnasium, because it unlocked the suburbs card, which was the last card I needed to perfect my deck. This is because normally you are only able to get 4 or 5 level ups per expedition, because it is just impossible to get that much XP in an expedition. With the suburb card you can just simply delete that problem, because the experience you gain from killing enemies is increased per placed suburb, and if you surround a suburb with 4 other suburbs, it evolves into a town, which gives 2 extra XP by killing enemies. This would allow me to gain a lot more upgrades during a single expedition. At this point, I wanted to try the 4th and final chapter in the game, because now I felt pretty strong. Before that I crafted some furniture supply items where I mainly got alchemist shelves, which increased my total healing potions. And after that preparation I used the stack and the necromancer for my first expedition in the 4th chapter. And as I started I got the achievement for starting the 50th expedition. Wait a minute. What is this? As you can see, was the boss meter a bit different. Do you want to guess what it stands for? A. The normal enemies get stronger on each mark. B. You get some debuffs on each mark. Or C. Every boss we previously fought is gonna spawn at one of these marks. Okay, you already know what's the right one. Of course we have to fight every boss from the other chapters. Yippee! This, as you see in about a moment, would be a huge problem. I built a few suburbs and started to place down wickets and river cards, and the lich already spawned. The only thing I achieved at this point were 2 level ups thanks to the suburbs. That was it, I had nothing more than that. So I just prayed when I fought the lich, and through extreme luck, the lich didn't focus me for most of the time, so I was able to defeat him. When the priestess spawned, I was about as weak as before. The only thing that was different was that I had relatively high summon quality, and with extreme luck and the use of nearly all of my healing potions, I was barely able to defeat her. When the hunter spawned, my stats were decent and my traits pretty good, but still I was barely able to defeat the hunter, this time with 0 healing potions remaining. I continued the expedition normally and my stats became pretty good except max HP until the last boss finally spawned. And then there was the moment. I reached the final boss in the game, Omega. And to the people who are obsessed with the lore of video games, I'm not gonna explain in detail what he told. All I'm gonna say is that he is the god and what he wants is destroying the rest what existed, and the only way why we can even damage him is because he wants to give the hero a fair chance to defend the things that mean something to him. With that out of the way, here's the boss fight itself. The fight against Omega is quite unique, because at the beginning of the fight he destroys all cards and items you have in your inventory. After that he not only does a lot of damage, but also bans one of your items and stats for a few seconds and weakens 4 of your stats at the same time. This means, in theory, if you had a ton of max HP, he could technically just ban the stat for a few seconds and would just destroy you during that time. But in this fight we both slowly lost health, but I only did because of of the trait, which splits the damage I become between me and my skeletons. This works out well until all my skeletons died and I also died. And died again after my resurrection. Fuck! And believe me or not, this would be the hardest thing which was left in getting all achievements. The only thing I needed to overcome was defeating Omega for the first time. And here's how I did it. At first I tried the 4th chapter again with the Necromancer and hoped to win, which obviously didn't work, because 1. I just was too weak to defeat the Lich this early, and 2. As the Necromancer it was purely down to luck if I was able to defeat the 1st and 2nd boss, simply because if the boss decided to go for me and not for my skeletons, I was just dead without me able to do anything against it. So after that I made a strategy so I hopefully would be able to defeat the final boss Omega. So here's the strategy. The strategy mainly consisted of these things, the supply items. There are 4 different types of supply items, which consist of furniture, tools, food and jewelry. The food items are all just complete garbage. Jewelry has 2 okay ones, but the rest is also garbage. Tools have some relatively good items, but the things I would focus on were the furniture items. There are only 3 items which I wanted. These were the Alchemist Shelf, the Antique Shelf, and Count's Chair. The Alchemist Shelf is pretty good because of the extra healing potions, but I already had a lot of these. But the Antique Shelf and Count's Chair are just busted when you have a lot of these. Why? When we take a look at their effects, it doesn't look that overpowered, right? Only 1% vampirism per chair and +1 max HP per resource you gain during an expedition doesn't seem that strong. And you're right, it isn't. But if we stack, let's say 10 antique shelves, you don't gain 1 max HP per whole resources, no, you gain 10. And because these items are infinitely stackable, you get resource chunks when your cards on your hands are getting destroyed. And the 4th chapter does not have a resource cap like the others. You already see how broken this can become. And so I began crafting. And crafting. And as you can see, I was pretty unlucky while trying to get the right items. And when it comes to these things, the metamorphosis things, these take a really long time to grind, and they are also really expensive to create with alchemy. And after grinding the 3rd chapter for 3 hours straight, I just had enough of grinding. So with just 5 antique shelves and 5 chairs instead of the optimal 10 to 30, I looked up a new strategy, which would hopefully be enough to beat the 4th chapter. This is the deck I used in this expedition, and I played as the rogue. The first thing I did in this expedition was build 2 storm temples at the opposite corners on the map. This is because I researched a new tile combo I haven't discovered before, the Burn Forest. Instead of giving attack speed, the Burn Forests give you pure damage. Pure damage is damage that ignores the defense stat of the enemies and basically means that you deal more damage. Then I placed the river right next to the Burnt Forests to double their effect while still being able to place down wickets right next to them. With attack speed and pure damage dealt with, I placed down the suburbs in one corner of the map. This time it was at the top right corner. Now to the enemies. Starting with the threat of placing a grove right next to the campfire so I could place a blood grove right next to it. I placed in total 2 villages, and the main enemies I would fight against were werewolves, skeletons and especially spiders because they would give me more trophies when defeated. I would also place a lot of outposts because the soldiers would make the fights a little easier. And then the Lich had already spawned, and when I arrived I had these 2 traits acquired. Then I fought a Lich and it went surprisingly well, and I was able to continue the expedition. After I defeated that boss, I placed more suburbs and forests, and then the priestess already spawned, and because I wasn't that strong, I intentionally planned that I had a resurrection at that point in case if I die. And who would have guessed it? I died and with the resurrection was barely able to make it. Yippee! Now at that point of the expedition I technically have beaten the hardest part. The only thing which was now left for me is placing more tiles to get better stats, wearing good armor and deleting tiles where I could be difficult to defeat the enemies. Sometimes I also needed to improvise, like with the river. If you still don't believe me that the hardest part was now done, take a look at the fight against the hunter. A very long fight, as you can see. And just a bit later, Omega appeared. This would be the moment when it would be proven whether the strategy worked or not. All I had done so far had built up to this moment, because if I was able to defeat this boss now, I would be strong enough to do all the remaining achievements. But without further ado, here's the fight against Omega.
Yes!
I defeated the final boss of the game. After all that struggle, I was finally able to beat him and ended the story of the game. I got the achievement for beating him, and then the credits began to roll. Now was the perfect time to think about the remaining achievements, starting with the achievement for killing Omega multiple times. I had to defeat the other bosses 3 times to get the second achievement tied to them, so naturally I should be pretty obvious that I only have to defeat Omega 2 more times to get the achievement. I have to defeat him 5 more times. Fuck! Although this seems pretty bad, it actually isn't, because I was able to defeat him, and this means from now on it wasn't a big deal to defeat him again. But now it's time to tackle on the last achievements, starting with See the World and Not Die and the Trophy Collection achievement, which just meant seeing every tile in the game and killing every enemy in the game. There were only 6 missing tiles and only 3 enemies I never killed before, so this wasn't that difficult to accomplish. The tiles that were missing were the 2 golden cards, so there are basically 3, the bridge, which just meant placing down the river card onto the path, the Makewiz, which just required me to place down a forest next to a sand dune, the Smith's Forge, which I also just needed to place down, and the Overgrown Field, which required me to place down a field next to a village, and then I needed to delete the village. I actually managed to find 2 of the missing enemies in this expedition, because they were just the enemies from the Overgrown Field and the Smith's Forge, so there were basically 3. But before I got into another expedition to get the last remaining enemy and tile, I was able to do a specific achievement before. The achievement I am talking about is Tripped. For that I needed to die outside of battle. You now maybe think how that is even possible, and the solution is rather simple. All you need to do is place a swamp and get the trait Blissful Ignorance. Why? Because when you stand on a swamp, all healing items do the opposite and do damage to you instead, and the trait Blissful Ignorance gives you a lot of Oblivion cards when picked, and from that moment on you normally heal yourself when using this card. Now you should understand how I could then use this trait to get myself killed. And because I was lucky enough to get this trait as my first upgrade earlier, I placed the swamp, stepped on it, picked the trait, and then slowly killed myself with this method until eventually, with that achievement out of the way, I started another expedition, placed down the last card, which gave me the achievement for seeing all tiles, and then I killed the last missing enemy, which gave me the achievement for killing all enemies. After that I used the alchemy feature to upgrade more buildings, and after that I killed Omega a second time. With these resources I was able to upgrade even more buildings and had enough luck to craft a 6th and a 7th antique shelf. After that I thought it was a good idea to unlock the Fencer achievement while killing Omega a 3rd time. The Fencer achievement just requires getting 10 orange items through the trophies when passing the camp, and all it really comes down to is getting a lot of trophies, which means a lot of enemies, and getting lucky. So I defeated Omega a 3rd time without any problems, but after that I continued the expedition to maybe get lucky enough to get 10 orange items at the same time. And as you can see, I got a lot of health thanks to the antique shelves. In fact, I got 7 max HP per whole resource, and because nearly the entire map was filled, the cards I had on my hand would get destroyed, which meant more books of memories, which meant more health. And after my brain was pleased for 20 minutes watching my hero killing everything on his path, I finally got the achievement for getting 10 orange items at the same time. Upon returning to the camp, I synthesized my 100th resource, which gave me an achievement. At this point there were only 6 achievements left. The collector and bookworm achievements were both achievements for 100%ing the game. The Godslayer achievement were the last achievement for defeating a boss multiple times. These 3 achievements were for doing some specific stuff. My plan was to get these 2 achievements first because they just required to 100% the game. After that I wanted to do these 2 at the same time, and only at the end I wanted to do these 2 achievements. Following the plan, I of course started with the collector achievement, and there were only missing 4 supply items until I crafted a food supply item and randomly got 1 item that was missing. So now there were only left 3. Because I wanted more resources that I could convert into metamorphosis orbs, I did another expedition in the 4th chapter where I defeated Omega without any problems. I meant without any problems. And without any problems I defeated Omega a 4th time. Back at the camp I tried to get a new supply item but without success. So I did another expedition where I defeated Omega a 5th time. But because I didn't get any new supply items the last time, I didn't retreat it but continued the expedition to just get a few, and I really mean just a few more resources out of this expedition. I just leave past me alone for a few seconds to tell you something. Follow me. So, I just wanted to thank you if you are still watching this video. This is my first video and there are of course flaws and stuff like this, and I really don't expect that anyone will watch this video, but if you watch this video and you enjoy it, it would be really cool if you would subscribe or like the video so I know that people actually enjoy the stuff I make, because this stuff takes a long time to make. And if you don't do anything of these things, I will do something. What did I just say? It probably wasn't anything important. Now let's just walk back to where I came from. Let's see how far my hero got. What? Holy shit! Yeah, it seems like I did a bit more than a few resources. And with all these resources I was easily able to upgrade the rest of the buildings to the max level and get the last supply items. Which not only unlocked the collector achievement but also the bookworm achievement for getting every entry in the encyclopedia. Now with the 100% achievements completed, I wanted to get the last kill on Omega and at the same time wanted to get the Crunchy Company achievement for what you must have 10 active skeletons at the same time. These also consist of enemy skeletons, so you must have at least 6 skeletons on your own side and 4 on the other side. So I picked the Necromancer for the final expedition against Omega and took the Chrono Crystal so the skeletons would spawn faster. In this expedition I made 3 tiles full with skeletons and placed a Chrono Crystal right next to the cemeteries. Later in that expedition I arrived when the cemeteries were filled with skeletons, and on the second cemetery I got the achievement. The last thing I wanted to do was defeating Omega for a final time, and when I reached him I was easily able to defeat him. It just took a little longer, but this was okay because after defeating him I finally got the achievement for killing him a 6th time. Now all that was left were 2 achievements. In Time for Lunch and Broken Geography. Let us start with the In Time for Lunch achievement. For that achievement you have to defeat the first boss of the game on the very first try. Although this achievement sounds really hard, it is actually quite okay. You just need a ton of luck and the right strategy, and we all know how fun it is when something is just possible with luck, right? So after I selected a different save slot and skipped the intro, I selected these cards from the deck. I didn't pick the Vampire Mansion because they would have been too strong, the Treasury because it is useless if you want to become stronger, and the Beacon because I wanted to fight the boss as early as possible, because the sooner you fight the boss the weaker he is. The strategy in this expedition would evolve around mainly fighting red wolves and spiders, placing mountains to get health, and blocking the tiles around the campfire so the Lich can't spawn his temples, which should make him stronger. From the gear you either want to have high regeneration or high vampirism with a bit of attack speed. The rest is just praying that you get the right gear. And after dying the first and the second time, I finally got a run where the boss had no temples and I had gear with lots of vampirism. At the middle of the fight with the boss, I thought it would be smarter to have a weapon which deals more damage for slightly less vampirism. And thanks to that decision, I was able to defeat the Lich with 37 health remaining, and I was happy to receive that achievement. Now all that was left is one singular achievement, Broken Geography. And if you read the requirements for this achievement, you likely just say this. What? To get this achievement, you have to place 10 cards that you didn't have in your deck during one expedition. Then you probably ask, how the fuck can I get cards that are not in my deck? Here's the answer, through prime matters. You see, when you defeat an enemy who has a soul in the radius of the battlefield, they have a 10% chance of becoming a ghost when killed. These ghosts also have a soul and have a 10% chance to become a ghost when killed. And these ghosts of a ghost also have a 10% chance to evolve into a new enemy when killed. And this enemy is the prime matter. So essentially, every enemy with a soul has a 1 in 100 chance to become a prime matter. And what do these prime matters do? When you kill them, there's a 66% chance that they give you 3 random cards, which includes cards you have not in your deck, and a 33% chance that they give you a golden card. And what the achievement wants me to do is getting 10 cards that are not in my deck from these guys in one expedition. The strategy for this is not even that complicated, so I try to keep it short. We are playing in the second chapter with the Necromancer with this deck. Why not in the 4th chapter? Because these prime matters have in the 4th chapter the ability to one-shot us after their 6th attack, which sucks. But now I will finally present to you the strategy for this achievement. At first I played the game just normal and placed down the river, the wickets and the suburbs. Then on the path I only placed groves because red wolves have souls, and on the side I placed brokeries, vampire mansions and especially battlefields. I repeated this step until every path tile was in radius of a battlefield and a vampire mansion, and I left space for the cards I had to place, and then I waited, and waited, and waited, and waited even more, and more, and more, and more. Now it was just about waiting and nothing more. The only thing I could do was just hoping that I would get 66% chance for 3 cards and not the 33% chance for 1 golden card, because this would take a lot longer if I just get these golden cards. But I'm sure this wouldn't happen because the other chance is higher, right? After an eternity I got my first prime matter. Let's see what he dropped. Hopefully this wouldn't happen again. Let's see what this prime matter will drop. Hello! I got another prime matter. Let's see what he dropped. Yippee! Yippee! He dropped 3 cards, which I all didn't have in my deck, so I already had 5 out of 10 done. Let's wait until I got the next one. Another prime matter spawn. Let's take a look at what he dropped. Wow! Fuck! What? Please another prime matter, please another prime matter, please, Yes! Yippee! I collected every achievement in loop here and didn't even lost my mind. Isn't that great? I've wrote my crappy review to the game and then I was done. I 100% this game and will never play it again. But before I end the video, I just want to say thank you if anyone watched this video from the beginning to the end of this video. Seriously, writing the script was one of the most painful things I've ever done in my life. If you want to see more videos like this, please consider liking or subscribing. It would be really cool and I would be really happy about it. But now, this is the end of the video. Bye!